everyone, welcome to another edition of Crop Cam presented by Cropland Genetics and Agri Solutions. I'm Christy Swenson and I have with me Brandon Jensen with New Vision Cooperative. We're going to talk about soil sampling and analysis today. So Brandon, talk to us about how you take a proper soil sample.
Sure. Most of the sampling we do is composite sampling, and that just involves going out and taking a representative core of your field. If I get a 160 or an 80 acre field, I'll split it into different fields and take like a half and half, like a 40-40 or I'll split it into pieces. If I got a smaller field, I basically just try to make it into pieces, drive up and down the field, taking samples, and we make sure we get a full sample bag by the time we leave the field, whether it's a 15 acre field or an 80 acre field. We gotta have enough soil to get a good representative sample.
All right, and then for grid sampling, it's just a smaller, more concise area, is that right?
Yep. What we really recommend, what we like to see guys do is grid sampling, and that involves splitting the field into smaller pieces. We can do anything down to 20 acres, down to 1 acre, and that gives you more of a representative of the parts of the fields rather than a composite, which can be like representative of the whole field. You're getting different pieces. Say you got a high area in one part of the field and a low area in one part of the field. A composite really doesn't split that up for you very well, where the grid sampling is going to split that up and show you where you're high, where you're low, so you can, a lot of guys now are looking into variable rate technology with splitting up the field so they can get down to those optimal levels across the whole field.
All right, and you got some examples of what soil sample results will look like. So talk us through this. What do you look at first when you're looking at these results?
Sure. Most guys want to look at their phosphorus and potassium. That's the important part. This particular field is an example of where you're low on fertilizer for P and K. Optimum levels for phosphorus, we like to be in those 20s, and 30 would be considered high. And potassium, we like to be at that 130 to 170 for a working range, and high would be considered, in the 200s. Whereas you can see here, this guy for phosphorus, he was only at 5 parts per million and 111 for potassium, so we would consider that a low sample. This guy's going to need some work, we'll need some fertilizer. Whereas over here, we have what we would consider more of an optimum level soil sample. This guy here's got 19 parts per million on phosphorus, where I said we like to be in those 20s, and he's at 175 for potassium. So this would be considered a good sample, and then we can we like to look into to building these up here. You also got to take into account whether a guy wants to look into just what would be considered optimum for plant removal, for crop removal, or if he wants to build his soil samples. And here, this would just be a good example of what would be optimum for, just for crop removal. Whereas if you want to build those, P and K are easier to build in the soil because they hold in that top, layer of the soil profile, whereas your nitrogen can leach and denitrify, turn it up, forms the plant can't use, and it can move through the soil profile. Where P and K, you can build your levels up a little bit easier.
So you mentioned crop removal rates. For somebody raising 200 bushel corn, what's an average crop removal rate that they can count on, or maybe 50 bushel soybeans, for example?
Sure. 200 bushel corn is usually a pretty good goal for guys. It's kind of where they like to set their goals. For that, you're looking at like 80 units of phosphorus and 40 of potassium. Corn likes the phosphorus a little bit more. And beans, you'd be looking at like a 40-70. They're thrive a little bit more with the potash. So that's good, just for a good set crop removal rate for 200 bushel corn and 50 bushel beans.
All right, and some other things you can see on the soil samples too. It'll show you what your micronutrient levels are, and it also shows you the pH. So Brandon, what's an optimum pH level we're looking at?
The optimum pH level that we like to see is 6.8 to 7, and anything over 7 and under 6.8, you can start running into issues with nutrient availability. It likes to be, ties up in the soil. So that 6.8 to 7 is a good range for pH.
Great. Thanks, Brandon, for your time. And everybody, there's a little bit more information on soil sampling and analysis. For more information, contact your local co-op agronomist. And also, remember that on March 3rd, we have a micronutrient seminar at Jackpot Junction in Morton. So feel free to come to that. We look forward to seeing you there. And remember, you can find us only on us104.net.